Hello, it's Jabba here, and what we're looking at today is rendering motion blur in DAZ Studio. So here I have pre-prepared, I have my scene and my vehicle. I've put Genesis inside as well, just so there's somebody driving it. But okay, what we're also going to need, we're going to need a timeline as well. I'm not. Depends on the layout. I'm not sure if they all have the timeline down there as standard. If you go into Window, Panes, the tabs, then you can head down to your timeline, and that should bring it on the screen if it's not there as default. Okay. The other thing that we need to do is in our render settings. Well, these once again, just generally speaking, I've toned all these settings down just so that it's nice and easy for working with on screen. Rather than waiting ages for a render to go. Is we have our motion blur option in our render settings. So this would be your advanced settings. If so make sure you've got your motion blur ticked, and once we start moving things around, we'll then start getting motion blur when we render. Okay. So first things first, I normally just operate between frame 0 and frame 5, and then that gives me some alternative options in between. But we can look at that just very shortly. Okay, so what I'm doing here. So my premise here is that I've got the Jeep, and the Jeep's going to be speeding along this section of road. So I'm wanting to not have the Jeep being totally blurred. I want the detail to be that the Jeep's more the focus of attention rather than all the scenery. So we're wanting the scenery to be blurred more than the vehicle. So as a general rule, well, actually as an absolute rule, come to think of it, if we're rendering with motion blur in DAZ Studio, we need to move our objects in the scene. Moving the camera just will not do it. So as long as you've got the motion blur ticked, and we do a couple of different positions on the timeline, then we will get our motion blur when we render. Okay, so what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to be as if I'm coming from here, say, and zooming up here. So we want the blur to be going this way, right? So the blur going from left to right. Okay, I'll put this up to frame 5 because nothing's been moved and nothing changed. So I'm actually going to do the terrain first, the setting first, the environment. So I'm going to push this back the way. Now I'll push this back. Oops, it would help if I stayed on it. Minus 500. It's just that I've got a round figure. Easier to remember that way then. Right, now if we're to do a sample render right now, for instance, again I've not lit the scene, no lights or anything in the scene yet. Now we're not actually going to see anything here that's changed. And that's because we're sitting actually on the same frame that we've moved the objects in, and so because that's the same frame that we actually made the movement, nothing's going to change. Right, so everything's all pin sharp as you'd expect to be in a normal render. Right, now, but if we go back to frame 0 for instance, you see the difference in the positioning of the environment. So if I go to frame 0, you can see there we now have motion blur on the environment, the surroundings. But when we get down to the Jeep will still be pin sharp. That's all well and good, but naturally something like this, the Jeep would not, like for instance we have wheels here, the wheels would be turning, it's rough terrain, so the Jeep would not be perfectly smooth in its action. I'm assuming that the live stream is actually capturing this as I'm talking this time. You know, because the motion blur is quite resource intensive. One piece of advice: if you've got if you're doing a close-up of like a road section, and it's got like a really detailed, strong displacement map on it, because we're actually losing the detail because we're making the motion blur, then you'd be as well to zero out the displacement map, you know, or temporarily just remove it for the actual motion blur render, because that because quite often you can have resources that they take up a lot of render time, but because it's a motion blur, it still takes the time in the render, but you don't get the detail because it's blurred. So if you know that in advance, then it's easy enough to just take them out then. Anyway, what we'll do, we'll get in a bit closer to the Jeep. Right. So if we go back up to frame 5. Again, it's the remembering to go back up to the frame so that all the movement is happening in the same frame. Then we can adjust them, adjust accordingly later on. Okay, so what I want, what I want to do here is I just want to spin these wheels a bit. Oh, that's a bit much. Okay, and I'm at frame 5. Good grief! Sorry. I've got this habit of going to frame 1 rather than frame 0. It's just I like the intensity of the motion blur there rather than at frame 0. You know, it's like I try to avoid frame 0 or frame 5 because I very much consider these like my start-stop positions, and the actual in motion, at least in my head, the in motion then is 2, 3, or 4. You know, it's well, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's the gun barrel. I've not I've left the gun barrel visible, haven't I? Okay. So now this is coming along nicely. So we've got the environment whizzing past. The wheels are spinning like a good one. Great stuff. But unless you are an exceptional photographer, you would not be panning to perfectly match the speed of the vehicle. You know, to get such pin sharp razor edges to it. So we want to put a bit of motion blur into the actual vehicle traversing the terrain as well. So we'll do, hang on, that's annoying me. Sorry, the barrel. Okay. Right. So let's go to frame 5. You see, remember I did this minus 500. So the colony shifted back minus 500. Now we don't want nearly as much blur on the vehicle. So rather than minus, I'll try minus 20 to begin with, just to see what that feels like, and I'll actually give it a little bit. Well, I've got it sitting at minus 5 right now because I put it down so that it was in contact with the floor with the sandy terrain. I'll bring that up to 0. So there's a bit of up and down movement as well as going laterally across. Okay. So I'll try that here. Okay, let's get under this Jeep. I'd say I need to put more blur on. Possibly not. No. It's doing pretty good there, actually. It's doing pretty good. See, so here we're no longer getting the pin sharp definition. You know the headlamps there, for instance. We can see that they're headlamps, but we're not getting that pin sharp definition on them. Same with the springs. Well, everything. It's just this tail end here. I would like a bit more blur on that. I must admit, I'd be inclined to do this perhaps in 2 renders and then blend them in post. So do one that was pin sharp, so I could then just add the sharp details that I wanted later on. It's like, for instance, if I leave that one there. And I'll just quickly show you this. See, so putting it so the render I did was frame 1. Now if we do frame 4 instead, you might find this interesting. It's just how where you place like what frame you actually decide to render on. Does change the look of the motion blur. So because it's nearer frame 5, then it's not as extreme, so we're actually seeing more detail in the surroundings. But then, of course, if we're wanting to do, let's just say we're looking at the two of these and thinking, well, we're actually wanting the one that's currently rendering as that's ideal for our background. But we're still wanting the motion blur of the vehicle. Then it's just a case of, okay, then so let's put more movement into the vehicle to make it a bit more blurred. So we need to do there. Let's push this back a bit further. Let's do minus 35. Let's put it up 3 back to frame 4. Okay. Well, once again, it's I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. Yet again, I'm looking at it and thinking I would like more blur on the tail. Although I'm happy with the front up to the cabin. You know, so the front half of the vehicle I'm happy with. The second half I would like a bit more blur on it. But that's the sort of thing that's where doing things in post work come in handy, because there it's like, well, I could save this render off for the front half, then do a second render that's more extreme for the second half, and then do a third render that is purely everything pin sharp. It's like here, for instance, if I was to go back up to frame 5, let's do something extreme. 69, up 13. So even just that one frame back. Okay, so here we go. Let's see what we got. What have we got? So as you can see, the motion on the vehicle is much more pronounced now. But you see, but I would not be happy with this if it was just like got to be a single render and nothing else. Then I'd be dialing it back to what we've just had rather than what I'm doing now. And equally, if I just cancel this off, yeah, I'll just cancel it off. Here, when it does that, it would have probably been quicker just to let it finish. So, okay, so if I take this down to say frame 2, you know, because this is the thing, is like all you need to do is move the camera to get where you want the vehicle to be in frame. You know, just because it's changing position here, that's got nothing to do with you know, you can position the camera where you want to frame your scene. So here everything should be a bit more extreme again. So this will emphasise more the difference in the motion blur to the background. Is it so because the motion blur is stronger on the environment surrounding the vehicle, that's giving the brain the natural suggestion that the vehicle is actually moving. Because although there's motion blur in the vehicle, it's not as strong as the motion blur for the background. But because I've intensified the actual blur here, it won't be as immediately obvious. But things like these struts, these pillar things, you're seeing significant blurring there. Whereas here, yes, you've got the blurring, which is more like how I would be wanting the tail end to be, perhaps. But it's nothing like what's actually happening around it. But that's not how I want the render to be. It's I'm just showing you how changing the position on the timeline can actually be quite dramatic. The difference that the final look could be in the render. Okay, just cancel that off. And what I'll do, I'll actually bring this back down to I'll let that render, if you bear with me for a second. Oh dear, I had a bit of a coughing fit there. But won't start whinging about, oh, what if I'm getting a cold? Oh, bad time of year for that. Blah blah blah. Okay, right. Enough about that. Enough about the weather. Back to the motion blur. Okay. Okay, so that's nice and dramatic. We've got that real, like so we've got that suggestion of a real fast speed. But it's as if we're panning round with our camera. Let's say it's something, something caught your attention. Like your garbage camera. Try to get the action. But because you weren't waiting on it, then the image is still a bit blurred. But for art, you don't want something looking like a cheap snapshot. It's got to, even if you're wanting it to look impromptu, it's still got to have some sort of detail in there to be the centre of attention. And if you've got a person in the scene, it's very hard to not have the person as the centre of attention. Or in this case, I'm wanting it to be the person and the vehicle. So, just for argument's sake, let's say we do this one. Because obviously, I could tweak settings all day, of course. Just to refine it a bit more and a bit more, and then get the lighting on it, and then that'll change it again. Because obviously, we don't have any shadow underneath the vehicle here. But anyway. So let's just say, just for argument's sake, I'm going, okay then, this is the one, I'm going to go with this one. In the same, so the exact same frame shot. Just take off the motion blur and render the same scene. So what I would then do is the blurred image on the left, that would be my main image, and I would so I would have that as a top layer in post work. This would be the layer underneath, and what I would do, I would just like mask out areas or delete parts of the top layer. Like just to get details of sharpness in, like perhaps a bit of the face, like a bit of the arm, a bit of the headlights. It's not necessarily like full opacity, like deleting the whole thing, because that's going to look unnatural if you do that. So if it's like a light opacity of brush, just until you're happy with the detail that you've got. Then that's basically like how I use motion blur, really. Because obviously here, I wouldn't just simply have it like that. I'd maybe have it. Well, let's see. I would normally go widescreen. Just because let's just say, just for argument's sake, that we're wanting this to be like a wallpaper or something. Oops, that moved the vehicle, didn't it? Oh. Okay. Motion blur back on. I wish I'd done it a bit bigger. See, so once I'm further away, now that I've taken the camera out, you can see a lot more easily that the vehicle is, that's what gives it the sense of speed. The vehicle is not entirely pin sharp. But like I'm saying, what I would be inclined to do in post work is make a couple of areas like sharp, so that there's actual detail for you to look at. Rather than to just go, oh, it's just a blurry mess. But because it's not nearly as blurred as the surroundings that is traversing through, then it's then we're getting the impression that the vehicle is travelling, and that the surroundings are not travelling. And I think I'll just stop there now before I get another coughing fit. And but like I say, once you've got your lighting on, that'll transform the scene further. I'll tell you what, I'll add a light, just for argument's sake. If I just do a single light, perhaps. Just light up. Default settings. Distant light. Betty Swallows. Let's just do something like that. Okay. Shadow softness. Sorry, brain drain here, brain drain. That's what light presets I want, isn't it? Okay, looking at edge of armour, advanced ambient, with ambient, oh, intensity, 44, light colour, I'll just do it it's going to be too blue, isn't it? Ah, what the hell. Even hit mode, primitive. Yeah, let's. Something more like that, perhaps. Okay, let's bring this up to something a bit closer to 1600 or 900, perhaps. Shading rate, well, I don't want to do a full scene just because we're recording, but I'll increase the quality just a bit. Save that off, just because I'm paranoid. And let's get this rendering. Alright. Oh, that's a good start. Okay. Well, 6% it says. Oh. Oh, perspective view. Oh, right. Of course, because that's that side's in shadow, isn't it? No, that's too dark. It's way too dark. Well, let's just get this. Oh, let's just lose the sky dome, perhaps. I wonder if it's it shouldn't be. Sky dome shouldn't be doing anything. Okay. Illumination on. Well, we can maybe give it some colour though. Give it a desert sun. Nice ambient. 55. I am an idiot. I am an idiot. I am an idiot. Oh, I knew I should have had a sleep before doing this. Okay. Light radius. Take that down to nothing. Put it back to 44. I do apologise for being an absolute idiot. Right, I'd left the light radius at standard on the advanced ambient light there. But when you've panned out to include the large scene, then it's like, well, just make it infinite. Bring it down to 0. That's more like it. So as you can see, 2 lights, the scene's transformed. Well, transformed once you remember to put the settings right. So like I was saying, it's like, yeah, I would do a bit of post work on this, but you've got to admit though, that's not bad considering this is just as it is as a render. You can't really complain at that, really, can you? It's like I'm saying, yeah, it's like I can improve it a bit with post work, but the option to apply motion blur during render, well, it saves a lot of time with post work in general, because if I was to try to get this exact same look manually applying motion blur in Photoshop, it would take a while. As you can see, it's I think that's pretty good for just a single pass render. Yeah, alright by me. Okay, I'll shut up now, and well, good luck with your experimentations with motion blur. Alright, until next time, cheery bye.